From the USA to Merseyside and beyond, welcome to the Blue Frontier. Insightful Everton analysis for every Blue with James Boyman, Ryan Williams, and Sean Kahn.
Greetings, Toffees. Welcome back to another episode of the Blue Frontier. James here, joined by Ryan and Sean. 133 years to the day after Everton officially opened Goodison Park, the Toffees turned the page to a new chapter with their first Premier League match at their new home, the Hill Dickinson Stadium. The occasion turned out to be a celebration on all fronts, as of course, the Toffees pulled off a 2-0 victory over Brighton and Hove Albion through goals from Iliman Ndiaye and makeshift left back James Garner. We're going to break it all down, get into all the details and all the dialogue. Before we do that, just a reminder that if you enjoy the show, leave us a rating and review on your podcast platform of choice. We appreciate it very much. Follow us on socials, join our Discord, all that good stuff. And with that, we go to our summary quote of the match. Sean's turn to pick. Take us away.
Thanks, James. And of course, I had to go with none other than Kevin Dyer at Nebula in 1979. So important to get an early win. The gods of football forbade Brighton scoring. Big difference was being ambitious, not passive. Jack Grealish, who was an elite talent, opened space for teammates. Ndiaye on the right wing, no problem. Garner stuck to it, deserved that goal. Tarkowski, kind of question emoji, and of course, Michael Keane, a clapping emoji, and totally agree. I think on all fronts, it was really good to see. I don't know about Ndiaye on the right wing, no problem. That's something we'll probably get into as the season goes on. But another thing we wanted to mention as to just a point of good faith, special shout out to Jake O'Brien and Sophie for their newborn. What a 24 hours, not 48 hours in Everton circles for Jake. And so credit to him for their newborn Grayson. And then one more thing, going to score predictions. So want James to take it away in regards to what we've added to the score predictions, and then I'll get into who won for this week.
Yeah, we just changed it up a little bit. We've shifted the format. We have a Google form now in the Discord to submit. Really just makes things easier for us to track over the course of the season. A lot less scrolling through the channel to make sure we get everyone and give them their credit. Today we had a couple correct score predictions from Juan and I'm Blue. A lot of negativity in the score predictions. Not a lot of people had a lot of faith. Understandable after Leeds, but you knew that it was going to be a big occasion, and thankfully, it all worked out. So yeah, score predictions have taken on a slightly different form. Thanks to everyone for submitting them. Join our Discord to compete. As we mentioned last episode, we're going to be running the competition for the full season. Still very early, so plenty of time. No one has more than one at this point, so join the Discord, link in the description. Great community. We want to have as many people competing for the title as possible. Before we get into lineups, I think we want to lead with the breaking news over the last couple days on the window front, and that is, of course, that Everton have effectively agreed to a deal with Southampton for Tyler Dibling. Looks like approximately £35 million up front with approximately $5 million in add-ons in the deal. Supposedly those add-ons are easily achievable. We don't know all the details there, but Paul Joyce reporting that just before we started recording, and then Fabrizio Romano saying that his medical will take place in the next 24 hours. Transfer committee have gotten their man. Took a little longer. The saga dragged on. I think at points we were all really skeptical that this would be a deal we'd see get done, and certainly not one that would be done on favorable terms. So I want to hand it off to the group for their thoughts now that this seems to be finally getting over the line.
Well, I think when you look at what I would view as a relatively overpriced domestic market, English market for wingers, the number doesn't look that bad. I think he's very underrated as a player right now. I mean, if you're looking at what he did at Southampton, we brought this up in the past. I mean, he had less than 2 touches in the box per 90. I mean, you're not going to be able to generate a lot in doing that. If it's, Paul Joyce said it was 35 plus 5. I had read 37.5 million pounds was up front. That's what I was told by another source as well. Yeah, it's still maybe more than some other guys you could get, but it certainly doesn't look crazy compared to someone like Amari Hutchinson. And I will say this, I mean, he really does have the upside that people talk about. He's got length, and he doesn't look that fast, but I think also it's because when he carries the ball, keeps it so tight to his body to control it. It's interesting. I saw him hit a post. I saw him do some stuff when he did get into the final third, which I think makes me optimistic that could be more effective for Everton right away. Reminds me a lot of Ndiaye in many ways, the ability to receive deeper and put someone on his back and spin and turn. And I agree. He dribbles a little bit too much. I'm not going to start calling him Tyler Dribbling, but it does feel that way at times. But a lot of that's a byproduct of the team he's in. Several other times you saw him move the ball and kind of take off. What excites me personally is his first touch is a little inconsistent prior to shooting when he gets in the 18. But every now and then you'll see a quick kind of right to the left foot shot, and he strikes the ball better than you realize because he just hasn't had that many chances to shoot. And you think, you know what? This guy could be pretty good. And I also like his versatility. Like, he's not so left-footed he can't go to the right. I think he could probably tuck in pretty well on the inside. I think he can also play wide and play on that touch line and cut inside. So I think there's a lot to like. You know, he has the physical kind of build to deal with the Premier League. The only concern I've had is what I've heard from some people is that he's like a really nice kid. You know what I mean? He's kind of introverted. And some people have some concerns that, you know, jumping up to a big club with a lot of scrutiny, that's going to be difficult. Now, I would suggest it'd be difficult for any 19-year-old, right? I mean, you know what's so ridiculous? He's 19. He's a 2006, though. Like, it's not like he's just turning 20. Like, it's pretty mad. But yeah, I mean, I think we have a lot of reasons to be excited about this. I mean, as long as we cut him a little bit of a break starting right away. But he's going to be able to contribute right away. It's not like he's just not going to be a world beater yet, but he could be.
Yeah, I mean, I think Ryan did a good job of echoing a lot of what I would say in regards to the similarities with Iliman Ndiaye. I love the versatility with him. I think he is also somebody that finally fits a position of need. Hallelujah, right? So for us to kind of see how David Moyes deploys him, Jack Grealish, and Ndiaye, right? Because I think there's some versatility there between those three. But I also...
What would you do, Sean, by the way?
In regards to where I'd put him?
Yeah, mix it with the KDH in the mix there.
I mean, I think in the short term, I'd move KDH back until we get a midfielder. But also the issue is, and we'll get to it, is you have Jimmy Garner, who I think is much more mobile than KDH, and that's not really saying too much. But at the same time, it's a good problem to have because we finally have some depth, at least in certain spots of actual quality. But I think for Tyler Dibling, I don't want him to start immediately. Like, I would like him to kind of, you know, get his minutes up because he also had an injury coming into the summer, right? So of course we'll see how that is. And I agree with you, Ryan. Let's not put too much pressure on the kid, but I would say he's PL ready, and it's going to be interesting to go from playing at Southampton, who was, you know, just, he didn't really have anybody next to him or talent wise, to playing with these guys. So it should be fun.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad that the persistence paid off and ended up getting us a relatively favorable deal in the end. So I'll give credit to the transfer committee on that front. Profile-wise, as you both have pointed out, incredibly high ceiling, like one of the best wingers in the world type ceiling. And I think the floor is also pretty high for him. Like, I think his worst case, he's a very good Premier League player. How he fits into the system is super interesting because now you've got Grealish, you've got Ndiaye, and you've got Dibling, all guys who want the ball at their feet. They want to dribble. They want to take guys on. You don't really have that profile of the really direct kind of pacey player that we talked about as wanting in the wings. So not to say that, you know, it's a problem necessarily, but it might be a little one note as far as Everton's attacking strategy going forward this season.
I think that's fair. You know, he's not necessarily a super vertical kind of burner type player. That being said, you can achieve that with wide fullbacks as well, too. And maybe we'll look to do that with the right back position. Asna's pretty fast. He's pretty quick. He gets up the pitch pretty well. And it's nice to have options as well, too. That being said, you know, a lot of guys that kind of, you know, carry the ball a lot aren't necessarily the best at combination play. I think Dibling can be okay in that regard too. So that speaks to his versatility. That being said, I mean, we still, I think, even have a little bit of a selection problem right now. And I think that gets us kind of into the match and in particular our lineup. I think that was what people wanted to see. You know, if Jack Grealish is going to play, there was that weird rumor that he was hurt earlier in the week. Thanks a lot to social media. When it looked like Jack was going to come into the fold, where was he going to play? Was he going to play in the 10? Was he going to play at left wing? I think the natural setup would be, unfortunately, to move Ndiaye into the right wing and bring in Dewsbury Hall at the 10. That's not the best use of Ndiaye, but Grealish is obviously a really good player, and you're not paying that money for him to not come out and play really well right away. And then kind of the rest of the team fills out since you don't have a left back, and Jimmy Garner there is playing left back. Curious your thoughts about how you felt knowing that Tim Irabunam was going to be teamed up with Ghana, knowing that Keane was also sitting back behind them. Surely some eyebrows were raised and at least some concern. And I was confused. Did you guys figure this out? So Fatma, when I was looking at the lineups, didn't have Asnu on the bench, but he was put into the bench the last 10 minutes or pulled out. I'm so confused.
Well, I saw him on the bench, I think, from the initial graphic, so it might have just been the sinking of Fatma. They got to get their act together. But I did think it was a little concerning, that two-man midfield, deeper, those two, pressing team of Brighton, how would they fare? Michael Keane is just a wild card at this point. He was very good today, and we'll talk about that over the course of the match. And I think you're right, Ryan. Like, you're not going to spend the amount of money we did on Jack Grealish and not play him at his best position or his preferred position on the left wing. And I don't think it's an ideal usage of Ndiaye, but from the evidence we saw today, it's also like doesn't completely nullify him as a player. Of course,
it's about the team too, James. Right?
Of course, 100%. I think you saw really good output on both wings and really refreshing to see dangerous attacking play on either flank coming from Everton. And so we also saw Tiano Barry replace Beto, which was the other significant change. Charlie Alcaraz drops to the bench, of course, to accommodate Jack, and then Barry to the bench. That pairing was scary. It seemed very exploitable by Brighton with their lineup, and with that, I'll give it to Sean to walk through how they chose to set up. But the Asnu on the bench was curious. I think it's only a matter of time for him. James Garner did okay today, but you really need that true left back, which he is absolutely not.
One thing on Asnu, right, we do have the cup game on Wednesday, so that might be his debut. So going to Brighton, of course, a gift from the Seagulls is Jorginho Reiter misses out today. Fabian Herzler said that he has a small problem. And insert Danny Welbeck at striker. Mats Wiefer is interesting. Center defensive mid has been playing right back for them. The only thing I can kind of chalk it up to is, of course, Baliba and Ayare being the preferred two for them. So he's essentially kind of playing out of position. It's not only Everton that plays guys out of position, of course. And if you haven't checked it out, our PL preview kind of goes into Brighton pretty in depth. But you look at the other wing back, and that's De Cuyper, who comes in, and then of course Lewis Dunk and John Van Hecke have been a pretty strong partnership for the last season or two. And then of course you look at that midfield, it's very good with Carlos Baliba, and you saw just the pure athleticism that guy has, pace, and what a problem it caused. And then of course Danny Welbeck, he's been around a bunch, just a solid number 9 for Brighton for the last many seasons.
Well said, Sean, and that takes us into our key matchups going into the match, and starting with Jack Grealish versus Wiefer. As you alluded to, playing out of position, and we know that he picked up a first half yellow card. It'd be very interesting to see really how these different wingers going up against unconventional outside backs would play out. And of course, everyone's very excited to see what Jack would do. First match at the new stadium, his full debut, really exciting. And I think Jack did okay. We'll talk about it in the timeline. How much would Brighton shift over to try to provide him additional support was very interesting. And then another winger matchup, but the inverse, of course, Brighton player Yankuba Minte versus James Garner. I feel like these key matchups always come up for us when you're talking about our out of unconventional profile backs. We know Garner didn't do very well against Leeds. We know that Asnu is viewed as maybe not quite ready just yet. And Minte is a real problem. In our preview, we talked about this potentially being a season where he really kind of ascends and becomes a really elite Premier League winger. And how James Garner was going to deal with that was a major concern.
Yeah, and he looked like a stud today. Interesting, though, I don't think any of us were as concerned as Mitoma versus Jake. And Mitoma's a really good player, certainly a better player than Minta, no offense to him. But when you've got a guy over there that you have faith, at least on the defensive end, you're not as concerned. And Mitoma had some plays. He kind of kept them at bay a little bit. But Minta was just tough. It's just the power and pace combo was really tough today. Were you guys surprised? I mean, he shouldered over Garner and Ghana each. I mean, it was amazing. But, I mean, I think the numbers are pretty evident. I mean, Minta was the majority of creation they had. 4 chances created, 0.55 expected assists, 6 passes in the final third, too. Sitting back for other people, and he was 5 for 5 in dribbles. And so that was a tough matchup. And Jimmy Garner hung in there, too. And obviously, Jimmy contributed with the goal, too, so that balances out. And I mean, you can't fault Garner for any of that performance, can you?
No, not at all. I mean, it's just so funny because I think you see, as James mentioned, the ascent of Yankuba Minte this season, the power and pace he has. I think as a defender, even if you have some sort of pace, you can't give that guy too much room, because even when you do, he just finds a way to glide with the ball and get to the sideline. And I think Garner, didn't, because there was a point in the first half, and I know we'll get to it, where I thought had great position to box him out, and Minte still found a way to sprint past him. And that's just elite athleticism for Minte. I can't really fault Garner too much on that. It's just one of those days where you just have to just hope for the best.
All right, so getting into the timeline, the fanfare before the match was fantastic. There's some beautiful shots of the blue smoke rising above the stadium. The noise when Zed cars came on with the team coming out was truly spectacular, and that place, from what we've heard from folks who were there, just got incredibly loud. And if this is sort of your proof of concept for the type of atmosphere, any concerns about atmosphere at the new stadium, I think, were completely addressed before the match had even started. So we start off, and the tactical setup was really, I think, of interest to a lot of people, how we would play out.
Yeah, the pod's representatives at the match, too, indicated that it was loud, which is great because that was the point of the stadium's design that way. Yeah, I thought the tactics bore out a lot of interesting things. Our defensive shape is very much a 4-4-2. What I thought one of the key matchups might be once you saw that tactical setup was just the midfields against each other, because I had concerns that Ghana can be a little aggressive, and Tim is certainly not very aware at times and also likes to win the ball. But I'll say this, the top of our 4-4-2, Dewsbury Hall and Barry did a decent enough job kind of making it so that Balaba, who's a little bit deeper, was not receiving the ball so easily. One would pressure high, the other one would fill in to try and prevent the ball for the 6. That being said, I feel like Balaba wasn't really working that hard to get the ball, and he was subbed at half for good reason. The guy can be spectacular at times, but you know what I mean? Maybe it was my imagination. Yeah, look, Garner sat back a little bit more and kind of supported Jack, and Jack was pushed up, didn't defend quite as much, and that puts pressure on Garner, and I think we saw that. So Ghana has to fill in that side. I don't think Ndiaye looked as effective on the right, though. I still think he had a little problems kind of spinning. Like, he kind of wants to spin and put people on his left hip. That's a little harder to do at that end. And actually, I would argue that we didn't do quite as good a job, I'm sure, as we wanted to, controlling the game and getting Jack the ball. I mean, he was good when we got him the ball and produced. But yeah, I mean, again, it'll look differently when we have people in their natural positions, right? But I mean, I think we started off a bit on the front foot, I mean, yes, there were some longer balls later in the match up to Barry, and they were pushing Jake up there to kind of play him long, which I guess you're going to play him it right back. You might as well use that. But are you guys surprised how well we came out? I mean, it was a little bit different.
It was great to see Everton. I mean, the occasion demanded it. Like, the crowd was behind it, but Everton rose to the occasion. I mean, 19 successful passes in Brighton's half in the first 7 minutes. Like, we were very much pushed up, not creating very much, and we get to sort of that final third and struggle to penetrate their defense, but just controlling the match in a dangerous way, even if nothing actually happened.
Yeah, and I think with the athleticism of Ghana, and Kim is very good at supporting possession, like getting on the ball, short passes, and he's very athletic. And if you can get him a little freedom to be able to kind of get loose and move with the ball and stuff, he can be effective. So my concern is if you're going to play that way is the back line. It's one thing when you have JB and Jake back there that are big and fast. They have recovery pace. They can save you a little bit. It's a little bit of a dangerous game. But yeah, I agree with you, James. I felt like we kind of hit a wall a little bit kind of when we got into the final third. And, Barry is new. They hadn't really played that much with him. So his movement's a little off. He's a little raw in that regard, not raw in others. I mean, eventually Brighton kind of started to feel it out. And it was interesting, though, to see two kind of 4-2-3-1 systems going against each other. It would have been lovely to score in one of those very early moments. And Brighton gets their first shot kind of at the 12th minute. O'Reilly was kind of pushing up higher. Ghana had to drop back and get him. And, it is what it is. That was my concern. When you saw that stuff, I'm like, oh no, midfield shape's going to be bad. It's going to be a problem, And then there was this bizarro play in the 17th minute. Like, it was like a role reversal today. Tark making 2 major mistakes and Keane being steady Eddie. Like, what was up with that?
Very strange just look from Tark today. We'll talk about it, but this was just a lumped up long ball that Tark should have control over. Matoma's there and he pops it up, 30 feet in the air, and Tark just kind of completely loses the ball and backs off, and Matoma's just standing there waiting for the ball to come down, hits it on the full volley, and it clips the bar. I mean, he has so much space. I don't know how someone's not closing down. I think Tark just lost track of the ball in that moment. But a good hit by Matoma, and we're a little bit fortunate there. Yeah, it was almost like Tark didn't see Matoma at all. Kind of scary. You don't want to lose that guy in the box. That is a dangerous proposition.
Yeah, I mean, but I also think that this is a bit of a weakness from our center backs, right? Even you look at last season, Jake O'Brien, whenever he played center back, that was kind of one of his weaknesses where he could get caught out by the long ball. Michael Keane, we don't really expect, right, in those moments to do well. Unfortunately, the one center back that we have that I have full faith in to kind of deal with those things correctly is not healthy. So unfortunate from Tark, like you said, James, a bit uncharacteristic with a bunch of the mistakes, and we'll get to the next one in a bit. But yeah, just we got off easy on that one.
Well, and then I was concerned too, because about 2 minutes later, this is one where Minte gets the ball wide and Ghana comes out to take him. And I mean, he just puts Ghana down like, it's the NHL style and forces a ball in. And I mean, it's a bad finish. I mean, maybe the pass was a little bit behind him. You have to hit that low and hard to get a pass. Tark was not looking at the man. He was kind of, I don't know if he thought that there was so little space in between him and Pick that he could get the ball there, but I thought that was very, very fortunate. And that's a little bit of the story today, in my opinion. I mean, there was certainly some fortune. 2 minutes after that, this corner, this was a huge underrated chance to me. This is great near post service from Garner, and maybe his ball striking was just, a little foreshadowing in this one. And I mean, Barry doesn't finish this well at all, but I mean, he could have buried it. It was sneaky as a good chance, but 2 minutes later, it didn't matter, gentlemen.
Yeah, this is just such a beautiful goal for the first goal in the new stadium. And it's, of course, Jack Grealish to Ndiaye in the end. But Ndiaye is the man who kicks it all off as well. He starts it off around midfield and starts moving the ball and then just sprints forward and gets himself to the far post. I have to say, Dewsbury Hall's touch on what was not a great pass to just sort of be able to then carry on in stride and continue driving forward and then eventually make that pass to Grealish. Grealish doing what he does, getting the man close, creating that little bit of space just enough to get the cross off. It's actually it's not even ruled a cross. It's really just a pass. And Ndiaye's crashing and gets his calf on it, basically. It's not even cleanly struck, but it's great contact. He just loses him. De Kuyper just completely loses Ndiaye, and it's hard to track the guy. He's quick, and it's an intelligent run, and a really great team goal overall. Getting everyone involved, very well created, all the new guys. And you see a lot of the really good attributes of some of these players that Everton brought in, as well as our better players from last season on this play.
Yeah, I think, Barry's hold-up play here is okay, but there's someone right by him. I mean, that's something that's lost. I mean, people are kind of criticized Beto for his hold-up, but he's out there by himself. I mean, all Barry has to do is kind of settle it a little bit. Ndiaye, we know, is great at recoveries. He's great at picking up loose balls, right? So there it is right there. Dewsbury Hall, when we reviewed him and looked at him on the pod, we thought one thing that was very obvious he did well is playing people into space. He had very nice weight on his passes and a very good transition player, and this is a tailor-made moment for him. Subtle thing, but it mattered. He gave the ball to Jack. Jack had time and space, and Jack has a good matchup here. And man, Ndiaye's, the timing is so good, and Jack's two-footedness was very helpful here, and it's a great finish. I mean, I loved the Ndiaye celebrations too. Hands behind the ears, whooping it up with the crowd. I mean, it was a long celebration, and it was well deserved, I thought.
Yeah, I mean, Tierno Barry, I think, actually does a decent job, like you said, holding the ball well enough to get it to Ndiaye. Ndiaye just, he's just skating on ice against these guys. And like you said, Ryan, I think Kieran Dewsbury Hall's touch, I mean, I hate to kind of put somebody down, but that's not something you see from Decore in that same position, right? So I think
That's fair. I think that's fair, Sean.
Yeah. But also, too, there's limits to KDH's game, of course. But at the end of the day, what I love about Grealish, too, and his take-ons is he can go from just slow to fast, like in an instant. And you saw that with how he just kind of slowed the fullback down, put him to sleep. And then, I mean, this is an incredible ball with all those bodies there. I mean, it shows, right? Because Ndiaye just literally just needed to tap it, and it just roofed the net. And just what an emphatic goal to score. Of course, so many Everton that moments eliminated with scoring the first goal. So really happy for Ndiaye, not only to score the first goal of this stadium, but of course the last goal at Goodison.
Sean, you bring up one really important point we've talked about a lot on the pod. If you're a good dribbler, or you can face, even with your back to someone, people have to give you space. So a lot of these teams that control and possess the ball really well, it's not just because they have phenomenal passing and guys that can really receive the ball. It's that people are open in space. Like City controls the game partially because no one's going to run out at Doku or anyone. Anyone they put at the wing can dribble. Now, Brighton's got a little of that too. They're able to control the ball very well because no one's going to run at Matoma. And we saw what Mintek can do. So we're acquiring players like that. To me, that's very exciting.
Absolutely, 100%. We continue moving through the match. And 27th minute, have to mention it, the Michael Jones tribute, special moment on the day. Someone who, of course, lost his life during the construction of this stadium, in the construction of the stadium. So rest in peace. And it was a really beautiful tribute on the day. So really nice to see. And I believe he has a tribute outside the stadium as well, where people have been putting flowers and things like that. So really touching, really fitting for this club to honor him in that way. De Kuyper gets his yellow in the 28th, just kind of sick of dealing with Ndiaye already. We're not even half an hour into the match. He just bear hugs him. Ndiaye wiggles away, gets dragged down. That is the first yellow of the match. But then 3 minutes after that, Brighton have a pretty seriously good chance here coming down the right-hand side. Mente gets past James Garner. It's a great block by Tim, but it's just warning signs like that. We know very clear at this point that that's going to be the problem area.
What about Welbeck's ridiculous Maradona pass in the middle of this? It was so unnecessary. I'm like, what the heck? Great block by Tim. I have some concerns about De Kuyper, man. I really do. Like, they did so well replacing Cucurella with Estupiñán, and I don't know, just my personal opinion. Yeah, you know what, though? I mean, what you did start to see, though, is there was still a bit of an identity from Everton here. So we were giving up some big chances, but there we were. We're trying to get the ball to Grealish. Keane was pinging it all over the place today, but, I mean, a couple times he really turned and, wham, went direct to Jack, and I like that about Keane. I mean, for sure, I think one of the reasons why managers like him is just, they're really focused on doing that, but this is that play where kind of Grealish to Garner, Tim kind of cuts inside, dances around a little bit. I was a little surprised at the shot. I didn't realize Tim can really strike a ball as well as he did. It didn't miss by that much. And then, can we talk about the announcers on this shot by Van Hecke? It's a great strike by him. It deflected 20 feet to the left. Like, what do you mean it's a great shot? I mean, it's not pool. Like, I just was so confused about that. That was very bizarre. I don't know, but it was really dangerous, right? Hits the post. A little fortune again for them and a little fortune for us that it pinged off the post, I suppose. And then the other fullback gets a yellow here, which I think this is a clear yellow, 2 in the 30. Veffer getting the yellow against Jack. I mean, to me, now I'm excited because now you got both fullbacks with yellows. I thought that they were going to make a switch at halftime to sub one of the fullbacks. They didn't quite do that. But yeah, I mean, I felt like we were coming on a little bit here. There's that great ball from Dewsbury Hall to the back post for Jake. He doesn't quite do much with it. And then we have almost another catastrophe courtesy of Tark. I mean, in his defense, it's a little atypical for him. And I feel like last year he was coming off injury maybe a little bit too, and we saw a little bit of this. Am I making that up?
No, I mean, this is a bit concerning from Tark, just not only this play, but the start to the season. So as you mentioned, he's just kind of strolling in the park once he has the ball, and all of a sudden decides to back pass it. And I kid you not, the look on his face as soon as he passed the ball was pure comedy. Now we can laugh at it, of course. But of course, credit Matt O'Reilly for just having the wherewithal to kind of, see that mistake before it happened. And I got to give Jordan Pickford a lot of credit. Makes himself as big as he possibly can. And there's really not much O'Reilly could do outside of course, wait for his guys. But just not only to save it, but then to not let the rebound go. Because if that rebound goes, it's 1-1, right? So massive credit to Jordan Pickford there. And Tark really getting away with another mistake.
You know whose fault it actually was? Michael
us.
Keane's. Apparently he told him to pass it back. You can't make this up. Like, I seriously saw some people say that on social media. I'm like, really? Like come on. Like, that's, yeah.
It's two plays. It's 2 plays inside the first half in which James Tarkowski just really not aware of his surroundings.
Are you concerned about that, or do we think it's just kind of an atypical thing? I mean, Sean, it sounded like you were a little more concerned. I'm not really, but... or is it maybe we're playing a little bit different, you think? Or I'm just kind of curious. It was more than that, by the way. There were a couple other moments, too, where I was like, geez, where's the awareness? Or
I'm concerned because we're in a situation, this kind of goes to a longer discussion, so I'll kind of pause it a little bit. But, like, if Jake O'Brien continues to have to play right back for James Tarkowski to always be in the starting lineup, that's an issue from a developmental point, right? And if you have Jared Branthwaite healthy, right, like, at this point, like, it's kind of just a situation where if Tark continues to do this, I think there's plausible evidence for him to see the bench, So, I mean, he's kind of at a place where, fortunately, now we have some quality within those 4 center backs. But I just hope that Moyes has the confidence to know that he can bench Tarkowski if he's not, doing the job.
I think that's fair. And I think that's a indication of a functioning squad where no player truly feels like they're automatically included. I'm not worried about this as like any kind of overarching trend. It's way too early to be drawing those sort of conclusions. Nevertheless, this was a massive, massive chance. You're looking at 0.4 XG on the shot and 0.45 expected goals on target. So Pickford, heroic here, and would not be the last time in the match he exhibited that trait. So that takes us to half. Fortunately, we go in with the lead. Some really bad mistakes that we weren't punished for, but we're in the lead nevertheless. And you look at the numbers for that first half, 0.95 expected goals for Everton to 1.46 for Brighton. That seems a little bit generous for Brighton, but they did have some shots in dangerous areas. They had also 8 shots to our 5. 70% passing for Everton, 121 accurate passes, but only 4 fouls committed, whereas Brighton committed 6. Any other numbers for the first half stick out? I think it was more balanced overall. They had 4 offsides, which was kind of crazy. 10 touches in our box, whereas we had 9 in theirs. So on the whole, kind of balanced in terms of some of these numbers, at least the way things looked.
The offside number, though, is maybe Jake and JB is a better combo if we're going to play like this. It depends on what we do still left in the window. You know what I mean? Like if you bring in more of like a 6 or something, maybe you can push up a little higher. But the fact that Brighton didn't have a single accurate cross in the first half is kind of interesting, right? I don't know. I mean, you could look at the XG number and say it was generous for Brighton. We gave them a couple big chances. But outside the Ndiaye chance, I mean, I guess you could say Barry's chance off the corner was maybe deceptively big. I mean, I don't think we were a great threat in their box personally. So I'm sure Brighton went into halftime thinking, geez, but that's why we have Jordan Pickford and you don't.
No offsides for us, though, which was a big boost. And I got it. The one thing that Minte just did not understand was how to stay onside, because I feel like a majority of those were his, and he was just confused every time. So a credit to the back line for doing a good job there.
100%.
The sub at half's crazy too, right? I mean, they sub Balaba off, right? And I think what was interesting too is almost right off the bat, you saw the difference there where they're starting to play down the middle and trying to go through the 6, and they weren't doing that before. I assumed that they were going to sub off, or when they made this move, I would assume that Henshelwood would have gone to one of the fullbacks because they're both on yellows, and they didn't. And I'm thinking, well, that's interesting. Maybe we could still, because now we don't have to alter our game plan at all. And I was a little nervous that they might take advantage a little bit. He had a couple runs with the ball early, but, all for naught ultimately,
Yeah, and honestly, you get into maybe the 60th minute before anything super noteworthy happens. De Kuiper fouling Tim, who had
on the yellow though, right?
Right, on the yellow. I don't think it's a second yellow, but it's putting those guys in awkward spots that's going to give you that advantage if you're going to draw that second yellow. It gets us a free kick in a good position, and it's a good move from Tim as well. He drove forward, his acceleration. I mean, one thing you can't fault the guy for, he's a great athlete. There's no doubt about that. And I think he exhibited it well there.
And he could run with it, if he has the freedom to do it.
For sure, 100%. And then just 3 minutes after that, it's the second goal for Everton. It's a great run from Tierno Barry. He stays onside. He gets in behind, working the ball over to Jack Grealish, laying it off. I don't know if when the ball was released from Jack's foot that he knew how this play would end, but he lays it off for Garner, running forward, getting on it, and it is a beautiful strike of the football into the bottom corner. Nothing the keeper can do whatsoever. Didn't expect it, but a really nice end result. He does get a touch on it. He almost gets over for it, but it's really powerfully hit and well placed and very low.
And a knuckler with some weight. I mean, you know what I mean? You're hitting a ball that hard and it's knuckling. It just, for those of you who's any sat back out there, unfortunately, I've got a kid that he's not very big, but he just can blitz a ball. It doesn't feel good sometimes. Pickford has some of the strongest hands on the planet, so he's a guy that maybe if you get his hand on it, you might think he might stop. Did Verbruggen maybe not pick up the ball really well? You know what I mean? Because it wasn't through people, but there may have been a player kind of in front of him where he didn't see it. But I mean, Garner hits this beautifully, perfectly with the laces. Really focused on technique on this one. I mean, he brought it back a little bit farther than you normally do with the laces, but hits it perfectly. I don't know. I mean, it's so well struck. I mean, you can't argue to say it wasn't a good goal. Garner's the one guy I want to take those shots when he gets closer. You know what I mean? It's something that he really has in his bag.
Yeah, I mean, what I also really loved about that play is the give and go with Barry. And then, of course, just Ghana, like, casually puts this, like, really curling ball to Jack, which I think from a defender point of view, you can't really charge somebody like Jack because he'll just get it right past you. So I just think the play as a whole, and, of course, there's not many easier second assists that you'll get, but to get, lay that ball off as smooth as it was, even as it's just an ability that most Everton players that we've watched the last few seasons don't have. Verbruggen, I think, could have maybe have done better. It's just kind of one of those things you wouldn't blame the keeper, in my opinion, for letting it in, but a different keeper might be able to save that, if that makes sense.
Ghana had a very similar pass to in the goal, too, in the first goal. So, I mean, I think people forget how good Ghana is or has been in the past in terms of passing the ball into the final third. We just don't want him shooting anytime soon because, well, people can get hurt. Yeah, this is just such a massive goal. You know what I mean? It takes a lot of the pressure off things. You can really focus on defending. You don't have to commit too many numbers up there. Both their fullbacks are on yellows. Yeah, it was just outstanding. And you saw Everton. I thought we were actually really kind of coming into the match at this point. And again, I mean, there's still some matchup issues, and you kind of wondered if we were going to make changes or when we would make changes. Garner eventually gets a yellow here. He gets bullied a bit by Minta, I believe, and Jack kind of has this crazy tackle in the box, and Garner got the yellow for dissent, I guess. Do we know why he was angered?
Unclear, but it was, bizarre yellow. Bizarre yellow for sure.
Yeah, what are your guys' thoughts on the changes here in the 64th by Everton? I mean, Ndiaye looked like he was gimping around a little bit, and I don't know if Barry's race was run. I think Barry's probably a little more interesting from a defensive standpoint. But either way, any of these two big guys coming on where the team's really got to come forward, and they're both threats at running behind. And I mean, Beto's a little bit more of a bully, so I was concerned that Beto maybe, doesn't play that well coming off the bench. Sean, you've got some viewpoints on that, though.
Yeah, I think the concern last season for sure was there just because he never got any playing time as a whole, right? So when you essentially have a 10 to 20 minute cameo to prove your worth to your manager, it's a tough spot to be in, whereas I think today there's a lot less pressure. Coming in with a 2-0 lead rather than a 0-0 game, I think for him it was just, hey, put some pressure on their back line and see what you can do. And I think he did a pretty good job overall for the time that he was on the pitch.
Right away. I mean, how was this not given as a corner? Like, I mean, it wasn't as bad as the one the first week where the ball was 5 feet out. I mean, how do you...
Yeah,
I know. Crazy. Unbelievable. And, Charlie's not necessarily made to play on the right side, but he's combative, rough, and he's going to get out there and kick some people, and you need a little of that. When you're up 2-0, there's nothing wrong with that. Irabunum comes out. I guess he had a cramp, of some sort.
It was weird there. I mean, it looked like he just went down and was getting kind of the customary calf hamstring stretch, but then he eventually gets subbed off, and Dwight McNeil comes on, so... You had some, it's fine with Dwight coming on. It does require some shuffling of the guard. McNeil goes to the right. Charlie kind of pushed into the middle, and Dewsbury Hall drops back with Ghana in the formation.
Yeah, and I think Charlie did a pretty good job of defending as well. I mean, Dewsbury Hall, I've been critical of this idea that I don't think he can play deep, or at least not with someone like Ghana. Probably not at all, unless you're trying to get on the ball and chase a game. This is a different situation. And so you saw a little bit of that rustiness, and part of it's chemistry too. I mean, it takes time to build chemistry in a midfield. So Brighton was coming into the match a little bit, kind of getting it into our zone. Again, we're winning 2-0, so not a big deal. But there was a moment in the 74th I think we're all very concerned about, the handball in the box from Dewsbury Hall. This is kind of a sophomoric effort, in my opinion, by him. I mean, he's got to know better to keep his arms together when he's defending deep, but he's not really a defender. Any questions for you guys? Handball?
None whatsoever. I think everyone was like, okay, well, that was a handball. I know it when I see it.
It would have been peak Premier League to not give that a handball and give the one last week, So I wouldn't have been surprised by anything, but like you, James, it was as clear as day. Once I saw it hit his arm, it was easy.
They reviewed it for a bizarrely long time.
I don't know why
dry it looked, but
Well, I mean, if the rules are not written in a way where it's remotely objective, it's hard. There's a lot of judgment there. I don't get me wrong. The referees were fine, whatever, today. When you don't talk about them, bravo, for the most part. At least it wasn't like the United match, but, Kavanaugh's another thing. Sure enough, it didn't matter. Pickford saved it anyway. And again, for over and over and over, we have to create narratives, apparently, about the water bottle. I mean, really?
What is this? What is the thing with
It's nothing new either. Like, people have been, whether it's a chart back there or something, everyone does this. I just feel like everyone's, whether it's England's number one, and that's he's a real threat from the keeper at Man City after this weekend. I mean, by the way, that's a huge jinx. Like, hope to God no other keeper they're going to be England's number one instead of Pickford, because it's like they're like a drummer for Spinal Tap, like something bad is going to inevitably happen to them. So the next one will probably spontaneously combust. Pardon me, the Beto run was a little bit after this. I mean, when Pick makes a save, I'm thinking this has got to be our day. I mean, I was never entirely comfortable. I'm sure no one wasn't, because it's Everton. But when that happened, you just got to tip your hat. And look, man, where would we be without Jordan Pickford?
Well, yeah, and you got to give the ref credit, because he didn't bump the penalty kick taker before the penalty, because just the amount of talking points that was for Bruno is just embarrassing to mankind as a whole. No, it's just credit to Pickford again. I don't know why Danny Welbeck took as long as he did. He was going to be in my contention for man of the match, awkward, just with how many of these chances he missed. And that was just one where it's like he literally telegraphed it. Like, you could just see what he was trying to do. Of course, if he hits it better, maybe there's a different story. But yeah, just one of those where, like you said, Ryan, we'll take it.
Well, he couldn't change the story, Sean, and unfortunately he tried. Who they really missed today? It's the center forward playing for Roma. Anyway, James, thoughts?
Just going to add, I think it's very fitting to your point, Ryan, for a player who's been so critical for us to get a moment, a shining moment on the opening day at Hill Dickinson. And it wasn't really a great, well-struck penalty. It wasn't very much on it. I mean, it was reasonably well placed, but I also love that they really, in pursuit of this narrative about the water bottle, they zoom in on the bottle with Welbeck's numbers, and it's literally 50% left, 50% right. Like, okay, he really got an edge on that one.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Thanks. That helped a whole lot, right? Excellent shout out to Luther Vandross, too, for one shining moment, even if you didn't do it intentionally. We had a couple big chances here at the end. Like, you knew eventually they'd push up and we'd have a couple chances. Poor Dwight, it just wasn't happening for him. And a lot of people are thinking, why is he on this team at this point? Do we need him? Dibling coming, which I think is interesting. If you're going to think about someone that you could move, you never know if you go on a cup run or whatnot, you might need him. I don't understand why McNeil didn't shoot the ball, or did he try and shoot it, you think, and just kind of flubbed it? Or like, this thing was on a tee for him. Yeah, there was some traffic in front of him in the net, but I actually expected Dwight to really crack this one and put it top bins personally, but not to be. Beto, this would have been an unbelievable shot for him. I can't believe he got to the ball first. And then Dwight kind of tries to go near post a little bit behind that. And then, Grealish gets the curtain call, which is very appropriate. Grealish played a very good game, and it was good to see Armstrong come on, and that was it, right? I mean, it was a nice way to see the match out. Wrapping up, Brighton manager Fabian Herzler. I'm not going to try and do it in his... Can we comment about his shirt choices and the tattoos and the... I won't mention what we said in the Discord. It's kind of inappropriate. But his thought was, I think we were the better team. Thoughts about that, gentlemen?
Yeah. I mean, I think that he's right. Like, I'm not upset at him saying that. But at the end of the day, there's been plenty of times under the Dyche era that we were the better team and we didn't do anything with it. So it's a matter of, you had a penalty that was given to you. There were chances that you essentially had that your team didn't take advantage of. So he's not wrong. But at the end of the day, they weren't very clinical in moments they needed to be.
Yeah, they didn't take advantage of the gifts that we tried to give them, and in that regard, they were not the better team. But overall, I think if you look at just purely from chance creation, they did have the better chances. They just didn't convert them. I mean, anytime you get a penalty in a match and you still finish with 0 goals scored, that's kind of a tough break for them. But we don't want to focus too much on Brighton, because it really was a day about Everton, and there was a really nice post-match interview. There's only one guy they were going to interview post-match, and that was Jack Grealish, of course, with the 2 assists on the day. And he gave a really nice interview and kind of just talked about trying to refine his love for the game. In recent years, he maybe hasn't quite felt that. In Pep's just such a rigid system, he can't play with the freedom that he used to play with. He didn't say these things. I'm just putting words in his mouth at this point, but the quote is, in the last couple of years, I didn't enjoy football as much as I should, but I absolutely love football. Had a lot of nice things to say about the stadium and the fans and the atmosphere. It was really just a really good debut for Jack overall.
And he talked up David Moyes, of course, just the role that he had up coming to Everton. But it was interesting at the end of the interview. There's 2 points that I want to talk quickly about is playing with Iliman Ndiaye, right? Just because they play with the same position. And he talked about that there's going to be no issue playing with Illy, and how really just, I want to give Jack credit, just talked Illy up tremendously and saying that the guy can play anywhere and he's such a good footballer. But it was funny when they asked Jack of where he sees himself ideally playing. It was essentially left wing or 10, and he was like, I don't really like to play the right wing, so I don't really want to go there. So unfortunately, Illy is going to draw the short straw, it seems like. But all in all, just a great interview from Jack. And I think it's just nice to see somebody of his stature have gratitude in regards to, really taking it on, playing for the club, and just kind of seeing the moment this year.
And look, people are going to get hurt. I mean, this may not be an issue where we plug all the pieces in, as we go throughout the season. Right now it's an issue, but it's not the worst issue to have. Again, my issue has always been, like someone like Dewsbury Hall, maybe didn't need to pay that much money to have that sort of type of player, whether it's a Christian Eriksen on loan or whatever you want to do, But hey, he's here for multiple years and Grealish isn't. And obviously while he's here, we're going to take advantage of him. Anyway, I thought, again, like I said, maybe we could have given him the ball a little bit better. It's going to be exciting to see if we can fill in some of those other gaps, and Jimmy Garner doesn't have to play left back and stuff. It's going to make things a little bit different. What do you guys think in terms of positioning and how people set up? I don't think Tim was especially disciplined necessarily, but Ghana was a little bit more aggressive, and I mean, it didn't cost us. Made a little bit more of an entertaining match for sure. Brighton eventually was just going down the right side though most of the match, which is understandable, and they had a lot of love down that side. 41% of the time they attacked, mostly through Minta, who played a very good match. But if no one's going to finish the thing, Danny Welbeck, then it doesn't really matter, right? Unless he's going to cut in and do it himself, and he didn't. In fact, I think Minta was maybe more differential than he should have been. The overall numbers for the match, I mean, certainly it's pretty heavily weighted to Brighton. You got to remember there's a penalty in there. Anything stand out for you guys necessarily? I mean, were we maybe better than the numbers indicated? Was it more game state? I actually argue that some of our bigger chances were created near the end, and I don't think Brighton was that dangerous in the second half.
Yeah, I mean, also, too, in classifying some of those big chances, you mentioned it, Ryan. I doubt that corner was classified as a big chance, right? Either one of the two for Barry. So, I mean, I think you look at also
it was actually, believe it or not.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Because so 2 big chances. I mean, it felt like we had a little bit more. So I think for me, I just thought we were also very good in regards to holding the line. I don't think we were offside the entire game. So for us, it just felt like we were much more composed. And for me, just the overall effort, and I mean, I know we don't have ground covered, but it just felt like there was much more of that today than there was against Leeds, right? And against better opposition, we really needed that, because looking at that midfield on paper, Baliba and Ayari, I thought they were going to run all over us, and they didn't.
I'd say the duels numbers really mattered, Sean. I think that speaks to exactly what you're saying. There was more blood and guts, and I think you got to give the crowd credit for that. I mean, if you can't get pumped up with that blue smoke kicking around, and man, I saw some of the videos when Z cars got queued up. Man, it looked pretty awesome and intense. I mean, just look at them. I mean, we won 70 duels; they won 47. We won 56% of the ground duels, 66% of the aerials, and we had more successful dribbles than them, which is almost weird to even think about. And look, I don't disagree with his comments after the match. I thought Brighton were the better team, and I thought we were very fortunate in many different ways. However, in the words of Ronald Koeman, that's football.
Yeah, and I think even if you characterize Brighton as the better team, it's marginally. It wasn't like they dominated and we snuck away with a win. I mean, you're talking about if it weren't for the XG they got from the penalty, you're looking relatively even. Shots, everything as you go down the list is relatively even. One stat that we didn't have in here that I did want to call out was the long balls from Everton, which were very good today. 31 for 69, good for 45%. Brighton completed 12 successful long balls. We know that's not really their game, whereas it's definitely more our thing, but nevertheless, some very good distribution over large distances. And when you can get the ball further forward and complete those long passes and get it to your good dribblers further up the field, it does set the team up for success in that way. So with that, going into good performances, we had a number of them, so kind of tough to choose today, but there were some that I think rose above the rest.
Yeah, I'll start. And in the model of consistency with the optimism train, we have to go run it back. And that's Jimmy Garner for me. He's going to get my second one for the season, and it's well-deserved. Once again, thankless playing out of position. Thought Thought he did a decent job against Leeds. Thought he did a very good job today overall. But you see 2 shots, 1 on goal, and what a goal it was, an absolute thunderbolt. 69 touches, 2 aerials, 1 tackle, 10 clearances. That's the number that really just kind of popped off the page for him. 79% pass accuracy on 38 passes. He had 2 key passes. Of course, 1 for 4 on long balls. That wasn't his movement today. 1 for 2 on crosses. And just, once again, just a thankless kind of guy that we have that has consistently played out of position. It's kind of hopefully something as time goes on, we get players back in the position that they originally are supposed to play. So credit to Jimmy.
Here's hoping, for sure. I went with Pickford. He had 4 saves today. A lot's been said about the penalty, both in the media and on this show specifically, but I actually think that the save that he makes to bail Tark out right before half is much bigger and more important in the context of the larger game. I mean, if we go into the half level with them having just equalized, that second half takes on a totally different dimension. So credit to him. Really good game, very solid, and was also 17 for 37 in long balls, 47%. And I think he actually looked pretty confident coming out. He had one aerial claim, which he looked very comfortable on, and a really good punch. So a really well-rounded performance from Pickford, and happy that he started off the season well.
And I thought Michael Keane was fantastic today, honestly. 5 for 7 in long balls. He was pinging them all over the place. Took care of the ball, 92% pass accuracy, 11 clearances, 2 aerials, 1. And it was in stark contrast to Tark, who was a little uncharacteristic today. He had 38 touches as well, too. And, he doesn't block shots because that's Tark's job, apparently. But, 11 out of those 11 clearances, 7 were headed clearances. And just overall, he had a recovery. He was only dribbled past once, 2 for 3 in ground duels. There was just a lot of positive from Michael Keane today and no mistakes.
And that's really, when you talk about Michael Keane, everyone makes out like he's just some borderline amateur footballer. He has a lot of things that he does well. His long distribution has always been pretty strong. He's always been great in the air. And it's really those mistakes that drive the overarching narrative about him. And I think that's completely unfair. And he has very much up and down performances, but he's shown that he can string together a number of good performances in a row over his time at Everton.
And we've talked a little bit about how JB, when he's a little bit more active and Tark isn't, it's a little bit better combination. Maybe Tark's suffering a little bit because he's being forced to be more active. And I don't know if the numbers exactly prove that out. I feel like maybe that was true, though, just kind of observing the match. And no offense to Jimmy Garner, but Michael Keane's also dealing with a guy at left back who's not really a left back. And yeah, there was Shade and Gone over there a little bit to help him out, but I just think he deserves a lot of credit. So while none of us picked Jack's probably the story of the day, I think.
100%. He had the 2 assists. We know the second one is like, assists are a terrible stat.
Best stat ever.
But he was also 29 for 35 in passing, had 3 key passes, I think the most of anyone in the match, besides Minta. 1 for 5 in dribbles, which I think is not representative of how dangerous he looked on the ball. His ability to the game slows down with him when he's in possession, and he just makes things look really easy, you're never really worried about him making a mistake or losing the ball in a silly way. He obviously has had plenty of practice in possession in his time at Manchester City. And also off the ball, 3 for 3 in tackles, which I don't think another Everton player registered as many. So not shying away from doing the dirty work, even though he wasn't tracking back quite as much because Garner was so pushed back to begin with. Nevertheless, very strong debut, and we're paying a lot of money. It seems like we're at least going to get some kind of return for that, which I think is a positive development. When you look at his heat map, it's exactly what you would want it's like a dream heat map for Jack Grealish. Very red in that left half space. And yellow, he
very hot.
Yes, hot. That half space was hot today, and long may it continue.
So getting into listener comments here, I think let's kick it off with this one because it spurs a little bit different debate kind of in the middle of it. And that's at Richard Watts from Blue Sky. It was our big day and everything went our way. I may go playing hay, I just may. Sure, we rode our luck, but frankly, we've been unlucky so often that we deserve this. There's some truth to that. Grealish, Ndiaye, KDH, and Barry look good. The stand-in players performed at the top of their game. Kudos, the pen save was critical and killed the match. Come on, you Blues. I think Richard's a little optimistic here, but I appreciate the enthusiasm. That being said, did Barry look good? And did he do enough to say he's got to be in there instead of Beto? Now, I will offer, I hate FOTMob ratings. I hate them, but I'm just going to throw them out there because it's just a factoid. Barry's the only guy in the entire FOTMOB starting lineup that didn't have the green. He was a 6.5. Everyone else was 7 and above. And I mean, look, he only had 17 touches. Again, center forwards normally don't have as many as some other ones. He missed a chance on the header, which he probably could have done better with. Only 7 completed passes. And he had a role in the goals, Again, I think the first one he does well, but he has someone right by him, which is important for center forwards. And he had a couple pretty good flick-ons that no one was really around. In the second half, there was one. I would have loved to see more than that. I thought he did fine, but I don't know why anyone would look at that performance and think, oh my goodness, we have to get him in. That being said, if you think they're close, you would obviously play the player with more potential, I guess. But I actually thought it was kind of harsh starting him over Beto. I don't even understand why you would have done that in the first place. I'm curious your thoughts.
Yeah, I think you asked 2 questions, and I think they're very different. Like, did Barry look good? Yeah, I think he showed some really positive signs. Do I think it's now undeniable that he has to start when he's fit over Beto? Not by a long shot. This is still very much a position that is up for grabs for either of them. And hopefully this will be a shot across the bow for Beto. We know he wasn't all that great against Leeds, but also extremely isolated, much more so than Barry was today. So 2 games into the season, this is a storyline we're going to have to monitor and keep track of as this plays out, because by no means is this done and dusted.
Yeah, and you pretty much said it, James. I think you have to give a bit of grace because this team is under pretty big roster construction, right? And so with that, you don't have a very fluid system right now that I think is going to highlight the strength of the striker. And so for Thierry Barry, he was on an island much of the day. You could say he could have done better with his chances on the corners, but I did like his interplay with a bunch of the other players. So if you were to look at like from a strength point of view, I actually think he probably is going to play a little bit better with some of these other guys. But would I start Barry or Beto? I'd probably start Beto. But it's kind of one of those situations where you do have the luxury, if somebody's just not playing well, to just kind of switch. And I think both guys are internally motivated to give their best for this team this season.
I think you made a great point, and that is when we talk about maybe Brighton should have won the match, maybe they were the better team overall, but there weren't that many bad individual performances. We highlighted some big mistakes by Tark because the expectations in these guys have to be reasonable. Like, you can't expect Ndiaye on right wing to play immediately very well. He was not terrible, but he wasn't good for Marseille at right wing. That was a big problem for him. You can't expect James Garner to play amazingly well at left back, but for his level, he played really well. And we know Michael Keane's limited, and you know what I mean? So I think that's important. I would say that Barry, probably out of all the players today besides Tark, I would say didn't look as good, but that's just my opinion. But I know he's good, so it's a relative thing. Like, I've seen Barry play really, really well, but he was with the better team at Villarreal. So either way, no one has ever made a decision on anyone after 64 minutes of football ever. And that's what drives me crazy. It's like, if you haven't watched this person beforehand, you can't sit here and watch him and be like, oh, that's done. He's going to play ahead of Beto for sure. It's all over. I'm like, come on, man. That's not a realistic thing. And that's kind of, frankly, to me, that it's not a good thing to say anyway, too.
Yeah, it is just a bit silly in the end. You're talking about a match in which we won 2-0 versus a match in which we very frustratingly lost 1-0. And that tends to, in my experience, drive a dramatic swing in overall. If we win, everyone played well, it was great, top performances. When we lose, everyone was terrible. That's, I think, part of why people enjoy the show, is because we dive in and provide a little bit more nuance to the discussion.
Well, I know, but then I get called a negative Nilly because I don't think
you're a fun sponge, Ryan. You're a fun sponge.
Fun sponge, right? I agree. I'm not that fun. I mean, I'm not going to deny that, but I mean, I don't think we were very good today. I don't know what to say. But for the guys in difficult situations, they were good, and that doesn't mean that there weren't encouraging signs, right? I mean, and we'll talk about in a second how we go forward.
Into the next listener comment we go with Sludvig's long time, maybe one of the longest time friends of the show. Brilliant result, great home debut from Grealish. Pickford was a wall. Considering the defensive shortages, what a great result. And that is really, that keys in on it, right? It's a fantastic result that on paper most of the listeners, a lot of people did not think we had any business getting a point from this match, much less winning the thing.
It's a massive result, man.
Huge. And again, we talked about it last match with Leeds. It's been a long time since Everton won a match this early in the season. We've had some putrid starts. So this is just, I think, in my view, kind of just a bonus with a week still to go until the window closes. This team will hopefully continue to improve. You're getting this type of result this early. It just sets the tone in a really positive way.
Yeah, and then next we have Mark, of course, one of the best friends of the Discord. Friend of the show, Mark, Southeast Michigan Toffee, miles ahead of last week, plenty of room to improve, playing a real left back to start, and still clear roster holes that need to be filled. Hallelujah. But all that make the 2-0 win that much sweeter. Crowd was noticeably loud. Hope that continues every week to make the Hilly Dick a real advantage for us. Ndiaye, man of the match for me, interesting. Extra dribbly today. UTF Friedkin's Toffees.
Yeah, Ndiaye, 3 for 5 today. Drew 2 fouls, 3 for 5 in dribbles, that is. Drew 2 fouls. I thought he looked very good. I wouldn't have been my man of the match, as evidenced by the segment earlier, but I do think you still get something out of Ndiaye. He's too good not to succeed. You could put him across the front line. I think to Ryan's point, you take this one match in isolation, whereas you look in his career when he's played at right wing over an extended period of time, you don't typically see the best of him. That's not to say that in a system with better players, with someone like a really strong left wing on the opposite flank, drawing other attention, he might have a little bit more space. But you're making compromises here without a doubt.
Yeah, maybe you can get better, too. I mean, look, you got one touch in the box the whole match, and that was the goal. But again, all the pieces aren't there yet, so I think it's a little bit premature to judge, in my opinion.
Yeah, and then we go basically now to a new week. Of course, a lot of chatter off the field with the transfers and rumors and whatnot. But of course, we have a busy week. So of course, the Carabao Cup start for us Wednesday at home against Mansfield for the Carabao Cup. Saturday against Wolverhampton Wanderers. And then of course, the international break, right? Which we should hopefully get some clarity on what the squad will look like for this season. We play at home versus Villa. And then of course, the Merseyside derby starts this year at Anfield.
Yeah, and I think this match against Mansfield is going to be pretty interesting, and the fact that it's an opportunity to see some other guys. So I hope Asnu can get healthy. I think that'd be good to see. And we'll see what kind of business we can do. If Dibling can get in time, certainly that would be an interesting option. I can't imagine he's ready to go necessarily, but it'd be interesting to see him out there. So yeah, and maybe see someone like Armstrong as well. They're right now, they're sitting 9th in League One, tied for league lead with 10 goals. They were 17th out of 24th last year, but 13th in expected points. So you're looking at kind of a roughly mid-table League One side, I think. Not a lot of stylistic things jump out. They don't pressure real high a lot. Some passes per minute, but it's mostly long stuff. But what's interesting is Nigel Clough is their manager, son of Brian, and has been there for several years, and who came up playing in Forest, for his dad, and then eventually Liverpool, City. Played for England a bunch too, but I think the really interesting story about him is that he kind of went into player-manager status of Burton Albion when they were in the Southern League, and took him all the way up to League Two promotion. Didn't stay with him. It was weird. He took a derby job in January, but they were 13-point clear. But I don't know, kind of interesting little factoid too, but I would think at home we can handle these guys pretty well. Sometimes Everton put in these weird performances where we don't turn it on early, but I think we've got some chances to do that. And who knows, maybe we'll play someone like Trimidi and put him on loan on show. I think there's an opportunity for a couple guys to go on loan, and I wouldn't be surprised if this isn't an opportunity for people to scout them and maybe get them for that kind of last confirmation game,
Yeah, I think that makes a ton of sense. And there is still, I think, some outgoings, to your point, to take place in this squad before the window shuts, in addition to the incomings that we do still need. Dibling is not the be-all, end-all. We still need, of course, a couple more positions addressed. So with that, Mansfield post-match, we'll see what we do for the match. Midweek might be a little tough for us, given work schedules, but we'll try to put something out. And then, of course, Wolves next weekend. Looking forward to it. That's going to do it for us today. I did want to end with this note from EFC Stato. Everton will end a match day in the top half of the Premier League table for the first time since November 1st, 2021. The good old Carlo days. Still very early, but just a positive day overall. And glad that the stadium was, the tenure of the stadium was kicked off with a win. It's just a very good feeling. So with that, thank you, everyone. Reminder, rating and review on your podcast platform of choice. We really appreciate it. It helps other people find the show. So Spotify and Apple in particular, just give us a 5 stars. Just please do it. We would really, really thank you for it. Follow us on socials, join our Discord, all that good stuff. Until next time, up the Toffees.